Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Comix Rant Mini. I'm your host, Arvin Bautista, and today we are going to talk about Marvel and DC's crossover classics, the Marvel and DC collection. There is a reprint of this out currently, I believe, after all these years. There's two versions, I believe. One was this more classic age and one was more modern, like 90s collections. I just wanted to share my beat up old copy of one of the books. I think one of the books might have all four of these stories in them and more. But this is the one that I have. I should really get myself a new copy. This has been super well read. Let's just soak in this amazing George Perez cover. This Hulk is so sick. Everybody looks so great. And the back too. So the back has like all the villains and some of the highlights from the other stories as well. So this was published 1991. I didn't get it until like early 2000s from this used bookstore called Green Apple Books. I got this for $13. It used to be $22. And it is beat up, guys. It was already pretty beat up when I got it then. And I've just kind of put some mileage on it as well. I love this book. I am always scratching my head why the big two can't just keep this book eternally reprinted. If DC can keep reprinting The Watchmen, Marvel and DC should be able to print The Wizard of Oz. I'm just kidding. They should be able to keep this book always in print. It's so weird that they just really hate each other so much that they can't get it together and make some more money. But you know what's funny is throughout the history of these two companies crossing over, it seems like it has always been that hard. So even this first book being made, there's some cool stuff in here where the sketch phase, all the way to the end. Just this book being made, this first one, Superman versus the Amazing Spider-Man, came under a lot of scrutiny on who would write it, who would draw it. But we got Ross Andru on art, who has drawn Spider-Man and Superman. And by the time I had seen his stuff, it was in like a special guest issue with John Byrne. I think it was like an annual of Superman. He's an older artist. I think a little older than Neil Adams, or maybe his peer. But I think he was already working in the industry before that. There's all this politics that are behind this book. You could probably Google it up. But one of them is, I think Ross Andru's art got redrawn by some of it, got redrawn, like a Superman's face. And I think there's rumors that, or maybe it is true, that Romita Sr. redrew some of the Spider-Man faces. And there's this article I read in Sci-Fi. It's still out there. You guys can Google it up, about how Ross Andru just seemed to be kind of overlooked. And his art is so great. I'm really appreciating looking at his art now that I'm older. I was younger and I didn't really catch him at his prime. Spider-Man with Jerry Conway was one of his best ones, apparently. I need to reread that. Anyway, let's go back to this. He is, whatever things were going on, whoever was redrawing his stuff, the real work was all Ross Andru's. There's these fantastic double page spreads. So this book is actually printed bigger than this. I wish they would print that in that size instead of all these other treasury editions. But he would do these things with perspective. He would really push depth a lot. This opening page with Superman is awesome. Look at this. This robot is busting through this building. And then you can see all of downtown. And I think he had some other inkers help him. I think that's why Dick Giordano was the one inking it. And I think it was in Continuity Studios, where Neil Adams was. And he had other people kind of inking these backgrounds, a lot of these backgrounds. But anyway, it's just so dynamic, so deep, right? Like there's so much depth going on and it's just so epic. And it's perfect for this book. It is the meeting of the first time these two characters meet. Most of this video is probably going to be about like this first story here. I will try to move on to the other stories, so this episode doesn't get too long, so you guys can see it. But it's just, I just want to gush over how awesome this very first one was. Written by, let me take a look here. Written by Jerry Conway, right? Edited by, well, more like overseen by Carmine Infantino and Stan Lee. But it is set up perfectly. So the first section is a Superman story in a very Superman-y world, a very DC Superman world. And the second section is a Spider-Man story in a very Spider-Man world. I don't know how better else to describe it, but it's exactly like the Spider-Man stories I was reading when I was a kid. It has the feel and tone. It even has the look of it, maybe because he drew most of it. But it presents both heroes in such a great light, and it's almost like a sampler for any new reader on what you're going to get if you read a Superman comic at that time, and if you read a Spider-Man comic at that time. This movement is cool. This panel movement, right? You just read it like normal. Like, so as a whole, you can see it, and it's kind of laid down the way I move my hand around it, but you read it like this. So he climbs up the building, he's on here, but he's still pushing towards this blimp, and then now he's over it, and he's kind of in free fall. And of course, he runs out of web, because he always runs out of web. But you know, the pair up is perfect. Lex Luthor versus Doc Ock. Both villains get nabbed in the first two stories, and then they meet up in jail. Perfect. Perfect. Again, this depth, fantastic. A nice shot of Doc Ock up close to us, and then it pushes into Lex Luthor coming in to jail, and they team up, which I think is also awesome. There's these villain identification pages, right, for Doc Ock and Lex Luthor, but also for Spider-Man. There's also a Spider-Man page in case you didn't know who Spider-Man was, and there's a Superman page in case you didn't know who Superman was. Lovely. I love it. It's perfect. It's just so perfect. And then maybe I didn't appreciate this as much when I was a little more, when I was younger, not like when I was a kid. I read this later in life, but the team up of when their civilian identities meet up. You get Superman, Lois, Spider-Man, Peter Parker, Clark and Lois, Peter Parker and Mary Jane, J. Jonah Jameson, Robbie's showing up. Is this Morgan Edge? Maybe not. But they all meet up in their civilian identities, and it's fantastic. J. Jonah Jameson does meet up with Morgan Edge. That's who Clark's boss is at this point with these comics. And then Lois gets saved by Peter Parker. Awesome. That's the, and then Mary Jane and Lois get into a catfight. It's all just really well done. They meet up. It's like these shots are just so epic and big, and you know, it's easy enough to go in there and redraw whatever was there, but to actually lay out a comic book, guys, it's like this proportion. It's just a feat in itself. And there's all this movement that's happening in this book, right? There's all this eye movement of action that's kind of leading you from panel to panel. And there's Spider-Man punches Superman clear, like he's in free fall, and then he swoops up, flies back in, he's like, I'm gonna get that guy. And then Spider-Man just kind of gets in from off panel and smacks him in the face. Thumb. Awesome. So there's a lot of these things going on that I never really appreciated the first time I read this, but now that I'm older and I'm back at actually looking at the mechanics of how comics work, there's such great movement going on in this book. Superman holds his punch, and it's the wind from Superman's punch that pushes Spider-Man back, going through buildings. He's not Superman, so he's not going to go through a brick wall, right? But this panel layout is so fun. So, okay, so Superman punches him, he flies out, and then he's coming in, swoosh, scrank, scratch, right? But he has to like twist in between this modern art. That's kind of hilarious. And, this was like before the movies, right? Like he's already doing all these fun acrobatics that I've always loved Spider-Man for. And it's presented so well in this comic. He just flies through this 2-pager and then flips and then gets back up at it and then throws himself, like these are always fun, throws himself at Superman. And come on, it's Superman versus Spider-Man. You're not going to get far with that. And it's great, right? Just let it out, Peter. Punch the crap out of Superman and break your hands. And then, of course, they team up. And there, again, movement is so great in this book. The layouts are just so fun. Could not ask for a better artist to pull off this crossover to appease both companies, right? Everybody wants to present their characters in the best light. Everybody wants to show off just how cool their universes are. Again, there's like all this depth going down into this rocket silo, right? Love that ship. Look at how much ink is used on that. Fantastic. And classic villains, Lex Luthor in that crazy getup, right? And then, of course, big fight between all 4 characters. And it is, it takes a lot of compositional skill and storytelling to put these guys all together, all fighting and all epic. Doc Ock, Lex Luthor is such a great choice for bad guys. Still, to this day. I guess it would be Venom nowadays, but come on, Doc Ock, man. Epic. Giant tidal waves. I wish I wish this was printed giant. They get their bad guys, right? Classic poses, yes. Manly handshakes. And our heroes, in their civilian identities, by the way, leave happy. The next crossover is drawn by the amazing John Buscema. And it's written by Jim Shooter. This, I think, from what I read, was more of a Marvel production. And, oh man, there's this drawing here. I just gotta drool over with you guys. John Buscema, Superman. I mean, man, that is just perfect. That's just so great. So the villains here are kind of like, but it's also awesome. I mean, you've already done Lex Luthor, Doc Ock. What else you got, right? Doctor Doom is an excellent choice for both these characters. Doctor Doom, Superman, Doctor Doom, Spider-Man. I mean, that's just some crazy pair up right there. Parasite, me, more like, he's like the guy that is a pawn that Doctor Doom can use. Look at this. It's just so good. It's drawn so well. Oh, by the way, the Hulk's in this book too. So Superman and Spider-Man have already met. They've already fought each other. So on this second one, it makes sense. It's great because they don't want to redo the exact same thing. And so there's all these other crossovers that are happening. And I just realized how genius it is to have the Hulk there, because, a Superman Hulk fight is also super freaking fun, right? This is all out action here. John Buscema with all these super muscle dudes. They're just tearing up the city. Awesome. Superman has like this darker blue. I'm not sure if this is the print that I have or if it exists in the new print. Here's the team up. That is genius. Peter Parker and Jimmy Olsen. Come on. That's so good. I'm just nerding out. But it's all these civilian things that I really, really love reading now because, we've seen our share of superhero team ups and they're super awesome. But Jimmy Olsen and Peter Parker, it totally makes sense. They get kind of bullied by Lombard together. And then Peter Parker has the hots for Lana Lang. The redhead. Yes. Awesome. I'm down. This is just so good. Jim Shooter. So good. So all this stuff goes on. Let me flip through this. Really great stuff. A fun story that is not trying to retread the first, which is, if you think about it, with all their sequels nowadays, it's quite refreshing. Oh, by the way, Wonder Woman's in here too. Awesome. She has a good fight. Actually, no, she does not have a good fight. She gets punked really easily early on, but I am glad to see Wonder Woman. Like they cross all these other characters in there, which is also great. All right, so let me flip through these. Look at this Spider-Man with the eyes. They're kind of like this classic animated Spider-Man I grew up with. So great Joe in the face. We got our hero identification. Not quite as awesome as that first one, but pretty good. Pretty good. Next, Batman versus the Hulk as drawn by Jose Luis Garcia Lopez. Holy cow, guys. This is quite a awesome book. Written by Len Wein. Who else better to tackle like these characters, right? So these crossovers are just so fantastic as they pick the best of the best, right? Because they have to. Again, I don't understand why both companies keep this in print forever. Forever, Make money, guys. Make money. Put down, yeah, I get it. They hate each other. But, man, there's money on the table. These are already done. Some of the greatest artists that you could think of, right, are on these books. Look at this. Batman vs. Hulk. Who came up with this idea? It's crazy. Again, they're trying to come up with new stories, new crossovers. They don't want to retread what came before because maybe, as I said, it was pretty freaking awesome. That first Ross Andrew Superman Amazing Spider-Man crossover is pretty awesome. You got this character. I didn't even know this character, Shaper of Worlds, but he basically can do anything. And we got, which is actually a good plot point here to kind of put our heroes and the Joker is in here too, and like all sorts of craziness. So by the end, this is fantastic. Look at this. Oops, sorry, bumped into my camera. But look at this Garcia Lopez face. Just his Hulk is so great, and I love seeing Bruce Banner and Batman, talk to each other. It's just kind of cool. All the civilian stuff. This face is so fantastic. It's good stuff. Good stuff. Right? Very dynamic. Everything is always perfect in a Garcia Lopez book. And you can kind of see this stuff is top class. Good stuff. The crossover in this case is only confined to these characters, but it does go bonkers because you got the Shaper of Worlds that can make anything, basically like the Beyonder type power, and he gives it to the Joker, which I believe there's actually a storyline where Joker does remake the world into his own image, but this is already a precursor to that. This is like, look at this stuff. Look at these layouts. And just how solid these hands are, it just makes you want to do what Batman's doing with his hand. Maybe that's just me. Fantastic stuff. And, this is when Hulk is traveling the world, just kind of trying to keep away from killing everybody around him. You got some villain and, some superhero identification pages. Again, kind of like the last one. Maybe these two books are more closer together when they were printed. And then you have, this last story is X-Men and Titans, two of the biggest books back in the 80s. I was not actually around when these books, or not actually around. I did not have access to these books. Not around. I'm old. So I was around. I just didn't have money to buy them. But these two books were blowing up, and they kind of had these parallels, in a way, to each other. Not like direct Doom Patrol, X-Men comparisons, but, there's two characters named Logan in both books, so yeah. But anyway, Claremont does, Chris Claremont's the one writing it. Walter Simonson is drawing it. And I think I read somewhere that Simonson was not the first choice for this book. It may have been, I don't know. I don't want to make it up, but I think it may have been Perez, but it's just whatever. obviously these people are super busy, super popular. They would love to work on a book like this. But it's availability, right? You still gotta make your money. And it's okay, because Perez does go on to finally draw what I think is the crossover to beat all crossovers. Yes, even this very first one. And it's hard. It's really close, but Avengers JLA, that was, oh my gosh, that was just a crossover to end all crossovers. It was just fantastic. Anyway, but Simonson does a really great job. He is a great fit for like these aliens and like the tech. And as a kid, it was his line weight threw me off so much, because it's kind of like it's a different application of thick and thin. And I always found it like so hard to wrap my head around, but I really do appreciate it now. It still is a very distinct look. And he loves drawing like these crazy aliens. You'll see. Look at these guys. It's just like dudes, the cannon fodder dudes shooting things, but they got like the coolest, craziest looking tech on them, right? They have like these crazy silhouettes going on, and then like these line wrinkle things that I was just mentioning. It's cool. And then like energy crackling, that's very kinetic, very, very kinetic. So there's a lot of there's actually a lot of story going on in here too. It's not too complicated, you can't really get too complicated with this, but it does involve one of the biggest storylines in X-Men history. It's a Dark Phoenix saga, and it's a team up between and then Claremont just totally pulls out some of the most cosmic-y Kirby things in the DC universe with the Source Wall. I mean, this is like crazy power that Darkseid is trying to reach, which is not a stretch for Darkseid. That is what he does. This energy Omega Blast is pretty cool. That, I usually see this very graphic in my head, but Simonson approaches it with this kind of curved softness that's pretty cool. It looks like neon tubes, and I never really pictured them that way, but seeing them here, it's cool. Look at this hatchwork. It's pretty fun. Like stuff like this is just like, whoa. That's just otherworldly, dare I say it. Yeah, so now it starts going, it cranks up. Dark Phoenix is coming. There's our team up, our supervillain team up. This is pretty epic right here, man. Here's the other face that I noticed when I was reading this. I was like, oh man, that's so good. It just looks so great. And you know what else is good? Just seeing this here is this little small panel of Jean's face. It's like, probably a cheap throwaway panel for Simonson to do super fast, but it looks great. It looks so great. She looks evil. Team up, handshakes everywhere. Very cool. Wolverine's always throwing everybody off. Raven. Right? And I would love to see a team up with these two teams again, to be honest. Yeah, it'd be super fun. Look at how much love Beast Boy gets here. Changeling back in the day, right? And then Xavier on the Mobius chair. This is going hard, guys. So good. It's so good. Just some great fan service here that you might miss because you're looking at the big green dinosaur. Just very cool. Like stuff like this, that you just block out in color, but just the graphicness of this is cool. Look at this hatching. That's cool stuff. Oh yeah. Deathstroke the Terminator is in there too. See? Look at these aliens. Simonson just busts out. No problem. And it's these flame trails are cool, and then at the end, I was hoping there's more of a Teen Titans X-Men team up, but of course, what are you gonna do? You're gonna have the Phoenix Force in an optic blast. Come on. That's pretty cool. I mean, okay, he's done it before, but I think he's done it before. But I mean, this is just super cool, right? Some of the best stuff. I don't know, I guess if like Raven mixed with the Phoenix Force, that would have been kind of freaking cool. But this is cool too. They totally get Darkseid, you know, they win, and then at the end, they have a party in Central Park. Metron comes back, gets his chair. I don't think they really utilize Professor X on that Mobius chair as much as I would like them to. But Darkseid is now on the Source Wall. Sorry, spoilers. Don't worry. He gets out there and he starts beating up superheroes again. Fantastic compilation of books. Just a crazy effort between two companies. Probably a ton of politics, like I mentioned earlier. But I'm just so glad that I have a copy of this. So, there's newer copies of this. If you liked what you saw, go to your comic book store. Definitely support this book. This doesn't happen, guys. Like, I think I brought this into work as well as Justice League, Avengers vs. Justice League. Nobody really cared. Not even the comic book heads. I was trying to push it so hard. It's like, why am I trying to push a DC and Marvel crossover so hard on you guys? And you guys don't appreciate. I don't get it. I'm just old, guys. Seeing these two companies together is such a joy to me, and I will always be buying this stuff. So yeah, DC, Marvel, you want to save the comic book industry? Put out more stuff like this. I'm down. And that's it for this episode of Comix Rant Mini. It is turned into a Comix Rant Maxi. It's kind of much bigger, but thank you for joining me. I hope you enjoyed it. I will see you guys next time on Comix Rant.